عليكم.
أهلا وسهلا.
First of all, we would like to thank the and Dr. Ceyhun for allowing us to launch this special panel. And our panel title is Revolution, Pan Regional Politics, in which we are going to try to analyze the revolution process in the Middle East. I will try to speak about Turkey's position and its dilemma between democracy and realpolitik. And Ustaz Osama, he will speak about Tunisia and the revolution, since he has experience in politics, and he will speak about the struggle for democracy. But we are sorry that Mr. Sarmini couldn't attend since he has flight to catch. So we will speak. So Dr. Osama and I will be speaking about our title. Dr. Osama, if you allow me, I will start. If you want to speak, the floor is yours. That's up to you.
Okay. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And Turkey, it's a very important country in the region, and the policies of Turkey for sure affects all the region. First of all, congratulations for the elections of the past couple of weeks, the first round and the second round. It's important from the region to follow up with the Turkish elections. From our side, the Turkish policy regarding what happened since 2011, it's essential to understand all these years what happened and how all this affected in positive, negative way all the democratic process in the region. In Tunisia, as you may know, all of you, we had everything started in 2010, end of 2010, exactly in 17th of December, when a poor guy didn't have a graduated poor guy from an internal region, didn't have the chance to find a job and to get a better life for his family. And he tried to work in the market, but the police was not allowing him to do this job, simple job, selling some groceries in the market of Sidi Bouzid, which is a poor internal region. One day he was not only not allowed to do so, but he was repressed and he was humiliated by the police. Why I'm telling this? Because I believe this is one of the most important reasons of the changes in our region. People, they feel humiliated, they don't feel real citizens, and they want a change. And it counts not only for Tunisia, but for the whole region. It is not easy to say that we solved our problem. Since that day, we're still having a lot of people like the person I was telling the story, Mohammed Bouazizi. We're still facing a lot of these problems because changing the political and economic situation of countries needs strong governments, needs a great will to change, and needs stability, and needs a real economic support and political support, internal and external. Did this happen in our region? I think sometimes yes, sometimes not. And today we're in a situation where maybe we feel that we lost a lot particularly in Tunisia, in Egypt, and some other countries. In Libya, we're still in the same situation, more or less. There is a civil war still ongoing there, with times of peace, months and weeks. What I want to say to start is that the real reasons behind all this asking for change is the citizenship, being a citizen of a country that you feel that is going to help you as much as this country can, and will respect you as a human and as a citizen. Until I believe this is going to happen, we're going to still hear a lot of voices for change from the region. To go back to Tunisia with some more details. In Tunisia, after 2011 revolution, we had elected a constituent assembly, which is like a parliament, but with the goal to write a new constitution for the country, a new democratic constitution. And this, because of the political divisions inside the parliament, took quite a long time. There was a lot of differences between different political parties, and this is important to say because this affected the whole process. People, they were waiting for a social change of their life, for a better economic situation of their life, and they don't understand much the importance to have a constitution, a democratic one, or at least if they understand, and mostly they understand, they don't understand why politicians, they take so long time to do so, and they are fighting all the time about things that people, they don't feel they are directly affected by. So what happened is that in Tunisia, we found ourselves after 4 or 5 years still talking about the democratic transition, the constitution, the new institutions, and so on. And we didn't start yet as we should to work on the economic and social situation. This is not because politicians, they didn't want to do so, or because they said we're not going to do that, but because basically the democratic transition was so tough. Just to remind you, we had terrorist attacks, political assassination, thousands and thousands of strikes, demonstrations. Just to say, from one side, we have a political spectrum that is all divided, and from the other side, we have high need to change with big challenges. I mean, for parties, they were not within the state; they were only in the opposition, and because of the election, they become in the government. These political parties didn't have the enough experience to fight and to face all these extreme challenges and powers that they wanted to stop the democratic process in Tunisia. The political assassination was extremely important and dangerous. Was a real attack to the democracy, to stop this political process and democratic process in Tunisia. So, but in 2014, we started to see some good results. An approval of the constitution with large majority. It gives the idea at the end that politicians, they fight, but at the end they managed to find an agreement, and this is mostly because of the concessions that they came from the Troika government within Ennahda and CPR, a nationalist party, and another secular party. Mainly, the biggest party tried to give a lot of concessions and consensus to reach an agreement on the constitution and to end with the democratic process. And this came with an important agreement between two people, Mr. Rashid Ghannouchi, which is the president of Ennahda party, and he represents the conservative family. And from the other side, Mr. Beji Khaled Sibsi, he was elected the president of the Republic of Tunisia, and he represents an important part of the secular side of the country and historian. It's a historical family, and Mr. Beji Khaled Sibsi, he was representing all this. The consensus between these two people was extremely important to make an agreement on the democratic transition, and this was important because a lot of regional countries they were trying everything to stop this agreement. Some of the Gulf countries, because this agreement really made the exception of Tunisia democratic process. So this was a really an important step. So why didn't work well? Why today we are in a situation where all political parties are thrown away from the parliament and a coup happened and so on? I believe this happened because the agreement was so important between these two important leaders, Mr. Ghannouchi and Mr. Sibsi, but first of all came too late, or a little bit late, and secondly, because this agreement at top level didn't find an echo inside the parties of these two leaders, particularly inside the party of Beji Khaled Sibsi. Mr. Ghannouchi managed to deal with his own party. He's a great leader, and he managed to defend with the support of the leadership of the party to fight for this agreement. But from the side of Mr. Beji Khaled Sibsi, was much more difficult. Without going a lot of details, I wanted to explain that in the middle of this 10 years transition, we started to have a good result, but this result didn't succeed on working on the needs of the people, on doing the economic and social reforms. Was too difficult, was too difficult, and was very not easy to make all these reforms, because we needed a strong government, very strong government, and the political scene in Tunisia was so divided, a lot of political parties, a lot of divisions, and this didn't help to have a strong government. Governments was governments, they were composed by 4, 3, 4, 5 political parties, and this was too much, I mean, and was very difficult to manage and to do real reforms. So we are in a situation where we had a great success at the level of approving a democratic constitution, or having democratic institutions, having free election, but all this needs to be proven and needs to go to the step further on doing reforms for the people. And this was very difficult, not only because of weak governments, but also because weak political parties, in particularly the party of the president, but also because, I mean, we're living in a situation where we have a civil war next to us in Libya, Europe, which is the most important partner at the commercial level. I mean, most of the commercial exchanges are with Europe.
Ustaz, can you summarize, please?
Okay. And so the reforms, economic and social ones, are difficult in any country, even in Turkey, in Europe, in Germany, in the US. So imagine how much is difficult to do it in a country where there are much more challenges, and a democracy that have only 3 or 4 years. All this, I mean, led us to a situation where people, they needed a change, and COVID-19, I mean, was an important made it much more difficult for the government to do reforms, to lead the country, to get a better economy. So with the COVID-19, a lot of people died, families, they were angry. The actual president, Mr. Said, took advantage of this situation and took the power by military tanks, and we closed the parliament with military tanks, the government with military tanks, and he erased the constitution. He wrote a new one, and there is no one in Tunisia today that is governing beside Mr. President Kais Saied. This is the situation now in Tunisia. Now in Tunisia, we have a president that doesn't accept to deal and to govern with anyone else. He took the power by military coup, and today it's 2 years. A lot of members of the democratic opposition are in prison, including the president of the parliament, Mr. Rashid Al-Nushi, and many other MPs and leaders of political parties from different political backgrounds. In Tunisia today, we're having a situation where we're going back to dictatorship. There is no respect of human rights, no respect of democracy, no respect of media. A lot of journalists are in prison, and immigration, which is an important part of the relations between Tunisia and the EU, particularly with Tunisia and Italy, are raising, and the numbers are so high. And this is an expression of how much the situation in Tunisia socially is so dangerous. So to conclude, I will say that the democratic transition succeeded in some parts, didn't succeed in some others. A president like Kais Saied took advantage of weak points of the democratic process, and didn't help at all on finding solutions for Tunisians, for our democratic process, and took advantage of this weakness and to take power. But today, after 2 years, he is unable of doing reforms. The situation, it was difficult during our time. Today, it's much more difficult. We're about a social explosion, and this is very dangerous for Tunisia and for the region. This is to summarize a little bit what happened in these 10 years, but I will be happy to answer any question. And thank you again for this invitation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Osama. I forgot to inform you that we are a think tank. Sarah asked me about to inform you. We are a think tank. We have actually 2 think tanks, which one of them is Jusoor for studies, based in London and Istanbul. In Jusoor, we focus on Syria. In dimensions for strategic studies, in which Dr. Ustaz Osama and I am researcher. we focus on Middle East countries and Northern Africa countries. Thank you for sharing your presentation. You talk about Tunisia and the revolution process, and you talk about it was about the revolution started because to be respected, most of these Tunisian people, they were not treated as a citizen, so there were a problem in terms of state-society relations. Maybe I will ask you about the future scenarios because I'm also wondering that what's going to happen since Ustad Ghannouchi, he's in prison. I think he will be in prison for his life. I think it was the decision that has been taken. Now I will talk about Turkey and Turkey's position in revolution process and Arab Spring process. Well, I wrote the paper. My title is there is a dilemma. There is a dilemma in terms of Turkey. Will Turkey choose democracy or realism or realpolitik? Let's say. So I argue that Turkey faces a kind of dilemma between democracy and realpolitik, but Ankara somehow managed to deal with these challenges by finding a balanced position where I'm going to give more detail about it. So I will discuss the strategic ties in Turkish foreign policy in terms of last decades, starting with 2010 till today's, by discussing the normalizations with Syria and Egypt. So my main questions are how Turkey reacted to the waves of protests in the region. Do we see any U-turn in Turkish foreign policy in terms of revolution or coup attempts or status quo? So it's a presentation to attempt to understand Turkey's stance on democracy. As Osama also expressed that the Arab Spring and the revolution that broke out of and at the end of the 2010 created a wave of change that had significant effects, not only in the Middle East, but also in all Muslim countries and even all over the world. Initially, this process, the Arab Spring, some of the academicians are describing that this is spring, with the expectation of positive developments by the Western states, but we started an unexpected series of developments all over the region and all regional states and global actors. And then when after the Arab Spring, we see that most of the attitudes of the relevant actors and regional developments has significantly changed. So before we understand this change in Turkish foreign policy towards democracy or Arab revolution, we must understand what were the principles. I think the mentality of Turkish foreign policy altered when the AKP came to power in 2002. It was different from previous period, and many officials in AKP they were thinking that relations with Arab worlds and Islamic worlds should be targeted to reapproach or re-evaluate it. It was decided to establish the relations between these countries, close and warm relations. So foreign policy principles were multidimensional, proactive foreign policy, zero problem with neighboring countries, transcending Turkey from model to center, and there was soft power-based understanding of foreign policy. So under Erdogan's rule, we see that Turkey could cooperate with the West to the extent that it confirms to its own vision and interest. So Turkey tried to integrate itself into the region by upgrading the levels of cooperation with all countries without considering the ideology or sect. It is seen in Syrian case. Syria has been ruled by Alevi Shia, regime, Al-Assad regime, but Turkey is mostly populated Sunni population, but Turkey doesn't care the ideology or sect. So Turkey somehow find a way to integrate itself with regional actors. But when the Arab Spring, started, we see that there is a new kind of regional order, which I always try to understand with this frame, regional order these developments. There was an anarchy, there was an uncertainty, there was a security dilemma, there was systemic transformation in the region, and there was also power vacuum. This power vacuum paved the way for regional actors to fulfill. So Arab Spring, accelerated the regional competition, and on the one side, Turkey was leading country to promoting democracy and presenting itself as a model because Turkey has been ruled by democracy. And on the other hand, Iran found a kind of opportunity. This power vacuum helped Iran to express or to export its ideology to the region. So Turkey was an active actor in the region, and it responded to these transformation in the Middle East. But it is easily, and it can be easily said that Turkey has been standing with the people, not with regimes, even though nowadays we experience kind of normalization process with regimes such as Assad regime, Israel, Egypt. Turkey did not praise coup or anti-revolutionary actors or the process. Turkey has been always welcoming democratic process. So, how we can understand the normalization process? I think there is a new kind of mentality behind Turkish foreign policy, and it's like a trend. It's like a pattern in the region. It is not special for Turkey. I call it diplomacy on the track, or managing the rivalry, and increasing friends and reducing hostility in the foreign policy. So, in this mentality, Turkey and other regional actors, they abandoned the policy of marginalization. It was easily seen in media. I've been following Arab media, and during the period just 2 years ago, most of the Arab media outlets, they were attacking Erdogan, attacking Turkey. They were labeling Turkey as an invader in Syria. But now, after the normalization process, we see that the marginalization process has abandoned. So there is a normalization process in the region, and it is also about international dynamics and regional dynamics, which I'll give more detail about it. But the regional transformation have pushed Turkey to change the policy or to recalibrate the political priorities. Now, Turkey's political priority in terms of revolution or Arab Spring is not promoting democracy or is not standing against the coup attempt or the regimes. So, because the geopolitical calculation and the balance of power in the region has significantly changed, and Turkey, the experience, the coup attempt in 2016, coup attempt by FETÖ terrorist organization. This is also one of the important indicators that changed Turkey's understanding of threats. So I think there is also changing structure of threats. As I told you, there are two dynamics. The first dynamic is international dynamics. In that regard, we should speak about the United States, Russia, and China. Turkey, in the first days of Arab Spring, we saw that Turkey was somehow cooperating with US, or Turkey was believing that the United States will support the revolution process. But what we see is that United States sides with status quo in Egypt or in Syria. This process helps Russia and China to become more active in the region. So in terms of international dynamics, Turkey had to find the ground, had to find a place to deal with Russia and China, because after 2016, many terrorist attacks from Syria came to Turkey. So Turkey had to deal with Russia by considering the international transformation. In terms of regional dynamics, I see that there is a normalization trend in the region, not just for Syria, not just for Turkey, but there were Abraham Accords that were announced by previous U.S. President Donald Trump, and there was a normalization with Iran in terms like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates normalized their ties with Iran, and nowadays we are witnessing normalization with Syria. So Turkey couldn't stay out of this pattern, by acting pragmatically, Turkey tried to find some kind of a ground that can, prevent the potential threats to Turkey. So, and as I told you, there are two dynamics also in terms of changing nature of alliance against Turkey, and there is a new security architecture. So Turkey announced its new approach to Arab revolution or revolution process. The first one is Syria, and the second one is Egypt. Of course, Turkey tries to normalize ties with Syria and Egypt, but without marginalizing the revolution process. And in Syria, in Turkey, the most of the opposition parties from Syria, from revolutionary and opposition parties of Syria, they are based in Turkey, but they are not, criticizing normalization process of Turkey with Syria, because they knew that Turkey will not leave them alone. This is the same for Egypt. Okay, there was a coup attempt. There was a coup in Egypt, and Turkey, stood with people. Still, Turkey did not, marginalize the process of revolution. So when I see these two normalization process, I see that it is seen that Turkey has put the sectoral policy approach that it pursues against many regional and global states into action. For example, as in its relations with such countries such as US, Russia, Turkey started to deal with issues separately in its relation with Syria, the United Arab Emirates, or Egypt. The zero-sum game or holistic perspective in bilateral relations has been replaced by sectoral politics. What does it mean? You don't have to, agree with all in all fields. You can cooperate in Libya, but you can compete in Syria. So this is main mentality, and I think due to the dynamic structure, which is the most important feature of the international system, states like Turkey has to review their foreign policy principles from time to time and change or renew them when it is necessary. Although there have been serious changes and transformations in the international system, if there has been no change in these principles yet, this means that these states has not fully grasped the change in the system, or that it has been caught unprepared for the new system. So it seems possible to make such a determination in Turkish foreign policy for the post-Arab Spring period. As a result, I conclude, because I'm run out of my time. As a result, Turkey prioritized issues such as revolution and transformation from 2010 till today, to the end of the 2021, 2 years ago, because 2 years ago this normalization process was started. However, especially the security threats from the Syria and radical change in the global and regional balance of power pushed or caused Turkey to change its political priorities. Even though Turkey tried to normalize ties with Syria or Egypt, it did not stop supporting keeping coordination with Syrian opposition bloc or revolutionary actors in Egypt. For some, Turkey has been welcoming democratization process because it believes that democratization will bring stability to the region. And Ankara never appraised, never welcome, never never allows the coup or anti-democratization process. What we see from the latest development is indicating that Turkey repositioning itself since it is necessary. There is no radical change or dramatic change in Turkey's revolution policy. So I think I'm run out of my time. If you have any question to me or Ustaz Osama, you're welcome. If you don't have, I ask Dr. Osama, how do you think the future scenarios? Because Ghannouchi is in prison. How do you feel? How do you read political process or the future process in terms of democratization? Do you think that Western countries or supporters of President Kais Saied will leave him alone, or?
Okay, thank you again. A quick comment on what you were saying. I believe Turkey was successful on feeling a wave of change started in 2011 and tried to be part of it. Tried to. It was really an important chance to get this new relationship with the Arab world, and the wave that was started from Tunisia touched actually all Arab countries, more or less. Maybe not exactly, not too much the Gulf countries, and this was really an important chance to build a new relationship with the people. And was a great opportunity, and was important for Turkey. And I understand this is one of the reasons that pushed Turkey to be somehow part of this process since 2011. What happened in the last couple of years? What you said, it's more as an expert and more connected to the last events and what happened with the Turkish policies as a change. Some of them are related to security threats. Some of them are related to the last presidential election. But for sure, I think it's important for Turkey to keep up on that trend, on keeping in mind that a change is happening anyway. Yes, we are now a wave back compared with what happened in 2011, 12, 13, and so on. But I believe this wave of change is going to continue in different ways. And history teaches us that real changes needs a lot of times and needs a lot of fights. And I believe the new generation from the Arab world, the generation that they knew what it means, democracy for them. They are on social media. They know the other people in their age and in Europe particularly. They are too much connected with this word. I feel that the young generation from North Africa, Tunisia, Egypt, all these countries, they're going to still need a kind of democratic countries, and I think it's important to keep that in mind. And this is everyone it could benefit from this, but because here where we find a real stability. From this point, I go back to your question. I can prove again that this is exactly what is happening. Some European countries, sometimes they think that they prefer a dictator rather than having a democracy in North Africa or in the Arab world, because it's easier for them, for some of them, not all of them, to deal with. I mean, one guy decides for everyone, keep control on apparatus and keep the immigration at low level and so on. But with Kais Saied, we can see the results. I mean, this president is not able to change the country. He took all the powers, but without a real debate in the country, is not able to do the reforms. Situation in the country now, it's much worse compared with a couple of years back, our time. Now in Tunisia, we started to feel that some essential elements, I mean, that they are subsidized by the state, like a grain, like bread and oil, and all this, that it's essential elements for people to eat. They're starting to be absent from the market because the country the state is not able to it doesn't have the money enough money to go on the international market. He needs now to make a deal with the IMF. But to make a deal with the IMF, you need really to put on the table real reforms. He refused to do reforms, and basically he wants the money without without doing anything. Because
the scenario for Tunisia, right?
Yes, I'm talking about Tunisia. So now Tunisia, it's in a situation where the president is ruling, yes, but is not able to control the whole situation. We're almost next to a social explosion. He doesn't have money to pay the debt, to pay the essential elements that for Tunisians, food, essential food, because most of these essential food are subsidized by the state. And the World Food Program had a report that in Tunisia the situation is really, really dangerous, and soon we may find population without food. I mean, and same thing more or less also for Egypt. Egypt, they managed to have an agreement with the IMF, but seems like it is not enough. So what I wanted to say is this: with democracy is really tough. You need to put a lot of people together and to find an agreement and to keep stable the country. It is really tough, honestly. But at the same time, it is the way that keeps everyone on board, and it keeps somehow a kind of stability inside the country if step by step we succeed on giving results to the people. On the other hand is what we're having now, which is going back to autocrats and dictators in North Africa. And what I'm saying is this is not sustainable anymore. It is not like in the 80s or 90s. This government, in my point of view, they cannot resist more than 3 or 4 years. The situation changed a lot, and I believe
protest, right?
Yes, protest and the possibility of to manage the country. People, they want to keep their freedom, and they want to fight for their requests of better social life and a better economic life. Now, when before you could use the security apparatus to stop demonstrations, to stop and to keep calm on the country. But today, I think this is not possible. I mean, even illegal, irregular immigration, it is much easier. I mean, in the past, it is tough. Now it's very easy. You go on internet; it's cheaper. So, my message is this: it is better to help these countries on having a real democratic country. Yes, not stable, but step by step, not to reach this agreement, but to have a better society, rather than supporting autocrats and dictators that at the end they're going to fail. This is the most important point.
Okay, thank you for your answer. If you have any question further, we can answer, or we will close the session. Okay, if you don't have any question, we close the session. I also thank Dr. Ceyhun and Tekirdağ University. Again, I hope we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much for your wonderful panel. Particularly, I would like to thank to Mehmet RAKİPOİLLU, who organized and offered this panel to us, and also Osama, your wonderful evaluations. Very thankful to you also. I need to continue in Turkish after these remarks. For the closing remarks, because this 2-day-long symposium has just ended here. Evet, sevgili dostlar, katılımcılar, değerli meslektaşlarım, 2 günlük bir maratonun sonuna geldik. Özellikle sevgili Harun'la benim için bir maratondu. Sağ olsun kendisi özellikle teknik konularda çok yardımcı oldu. 2 gün boyunca çok çeşitli konular konuşuldu. Namık Kemal Üniversitesi'nin ev sahipliğinde. Hakikaten Avrupa Birliği'nden Orta Doğu'ya şu anda kapattığımız oturum gibi Arap Baharı ya da Arap dünyasında değişim, devrim bağlamları dahil olmak üzere Türk dış politikasına kadar pek çok konular konuşuldu, pek çok bildiriler sunuldu. Kendi payımı özellikle genç meslektaşlarımızı mümkün mertebe desteklemeye çalıştım. Onlar için umuyorum ki iyi bir deneyim olmuştur. Özellikle yüksek lisans öğrencilerimiz vardı bizlerle birlikte konuşmalar yapan. Ben umuyorum ki bu ikincisiydi bu Sosyal Sempozyumunun. Umuyorum ki dördüncüsü ve daha sonra 5.'si 6'sı şeklinde gelenekselleşecek bir boyuta kavuşur. Bizler elimizden geleni yaptık. Sevgili asistan hocamız Harun Karagöl'le beraber. Sürçülisan ettiysek affola. Herhangi bir hata kusur elbette ki bizdendir. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz herkese. Çok değerli katkılar dediğim gibi sunuldu. Yaklaşık 40 kadar konuşma yapıldı. Açılış oturumu hariç. Çok değerliydi bizler için. Umuyorum dediğim gibi gelenekselleştirme imkanına da kavuşuruz. Kayıtlar bildiğimiz kadarıyla sevgili Harun Hocam üniversitemizin sayfasına aktaracak. Kayıtlarımız da internet sayfamızda kısa bir süre sonra yayınlanmış olacak. Çok teşekkür ediyorum tekrar. Kendinize çok iyi bakın. Hepinize iyi günler diliyorum. Görüşmek üzere.
İyi günler hocam. Biz teşekkür ederiz.
Görüşürüz hocam. Sağ olun.